I'm scared.
Me too. I eat a lot of, anti-heartburn stuff.
Oh yeah? Stellenbosch Mafia or the Taxi Association?
Is there a difference?
Is there? Oh. Is it scary for you to imagine that all of this could be linked to the president?
I've written 4 books about police corruption, about drug trafficking. I've written about too many murders to even conceive of. And I've just thought, oh my gosh, whether this is true or not, it means that focus will be on this.
Correct. We are joined by one of the best investigative journalists in the country right now. Caryn Dolley is here, ladies and gentlemen. She's published many books on organized crime and corruption in South Africa. Caryn, welcome.
Thank you.
We read somewhere that games make you anxious, but you investigate the mafia. What kind of person does that?
Me? This kind of person?
What? How do games make you anxious, but the mafia?
So too do birds.
Oh, for real?
I'm terrified of birds. I shouldn't say that though. Someone's going to unleash a parrot or something.
Gangsters have birds at your compounds, please. But how does one become an investigative journalist?
I actually don't know. I don't know. I accidentally became a journalist and I accidentally became an investigative journalist. I've always wanted to write. And I think just when you go to press conferences, when you listen to politicians and you realize something isn't quite right and you keep following the thread, you end up doing this for more than 20 years and there's a lot more thread to follow. So I'm inadvertently here.
You wrote a lot of books about organized crime. Are we in a mafia state?
So I would say we are in a state with mafia-like elements. We are in a state that is saturated in organized crime. And I think we will hear more about this in the coming months, coming from within the police service or accusations of mafia state-like crimes. But yeah, I think we're in a very scary position. And what worries me is that it may not be new. We may be seeing a lot more physical, violent crime, but the underlying causes and, for example, money laundering, white-collar crime, I think that infrastructure has always been there.
You're saying it's always been there, like since the days of apartheid. Tell us about Vito Palazzolo.
Oh, okay. So, thank you. You really got me going there. Don't do this. Are you sure you want to go there? But absolutely.
Let's go.
So I always, in my book, Clash of the Cartels, I go into exceptional detail to explain how drug trafficking routes that are very robust today are nothing new. Now, we know that the apartheid government was involved in manufacturing mandrax, which is a drug. We also know that the mandrax trade is still very much alive and active. So there's some suspicions, although these have been denied along the way, but there are suspicions that those very routes, those conduits, have just been taken over by people, so successors. In terms of Vito Palazzolo, he was accused of being a mafioso. He was based in the Western Cape at one point. He was never prosecuted in South Africa. He left the country many years ago, and he was arrested and detained, basically, and eventually jailed in Italy. But the accusations against him, which I have to emphasize, he has denied, was that he was basically a mafia figure who was aligned to National Party government figures, in other words, those sort of furthering the apartheid agenda as well as those opposing apartheid. But he's denied any links and he's denied accusations of criminality.
Wow. What's funny is that we haven't heard anybody saying we blame this on apartheid, but we can blame gangsterism on apartheid to a very serious degree, can't we?
We can blame the proliferation of gangsterism, or in a way, because let's put it this way, gangsterism is always evolving. But we can say that under apartheid, there were police officers, there were agents within the state who used gangsters to further their agendas, which were criminal agendas. So yes, we can say we can blame the proliferation of gangsterism at a certain stage, and even now what it is, we can trace it back and say, this is where this happened. So yeah, I think we can turn back and say, hey, our predecessors set this up. And when I say our predecessors, I mean like political predecessors. I don't know if we want to say our and attach ourselves to them. I think we want to sever that. So as a journalist, I will take the our out, but say the predecessors. Yeah.
But now, how does the ANC come in and become unable to stop it as a new government from 94 until now?
So remember, gang roots, etc. When I speak gangsterism, I'm actually speaking organized crime because we can't just say gangsterism or drug trafficking or firearms trafficking. It's all connected.
Yes.
So if we look at pre-1994, we had individuals who are obviously pro and for apartheid. Some of those individuals were absorbed into the police service, so we had the same fissures or friction. And what we saw is some individuals were suspected of carrying on with what they were doing under apartheid, and others tried to prevent that. If you look at my book, Man Alone, you see that those two trajectories happening, with one side of this saying, hey, you started this, you've continued this, and the suspicion that, okay, so there may be a new government in place, but there may be figures in this new government who are furthering older agendas to make money. In other words, for greed.
Yes. Is South Africa connected? How does South Africa connect to the international?
Oh, South Africa is enmeshed.
Is it that deep?
Absolutely.
Are we that deep?
Please go and look at Clash of the Cartels. I mean, it really shows how many countries are part and parcel of the drug trade in South Africa. So it's almost like when you speak about South African crime, it's not really a thing because we are part of the global picture. We are not exempt from what's happening around us. Drugs are coming in from Durban. Where are the drugs coming from? Okay, they're coming from Brazil. Okay, where do the drugs go from here? Some of it stays in Gauteng, some of it gets dispersed around the country, Western Cape, gangsterism epicenter, and then some leaves the country. So absolutely, we are part and parcel. We are, what do you call it, a cog in a long chain. So we are very enmeshed in global organized crime. And you can see some of the murders that have happened. Those are flashpoints of global organized crime. We've had an incident in Constantia, which is an upmarket suburb in Cape Town. I think it was 2017. A steroid smuggler. He was convicted in Ireland. He was murdered in Cape Town, and he was wanted in the US. That one case alone, sort of, you can see so many webs to other countries.
Who's more scary, the Stellenbosch Mafia or the Taxi Association?
Is there a difference?
Is there?
So I want to point out when we talk organized crime, especially when we talk gangsterism, I think certain people have this preconceived idea of who and what a gangster is. Now, there's gang violence in hotspots around Cape Town because of the cluster of people, and most of those areas are Group Areas Act, where lots of people who were not white were dumped. Okay, so we've got that. Now we think of gangsters as these foot soldiers, etc. But no, the person sitting in a business who's committing crime that is linked to that gang is a gangster. So I would say we are using different words to describe the same thing, which is organized crime. So
are South Africans generally ignorant about how big the impact is of organized crime?
I would say that is based on where you're living. Because if I, for example, lived, and I'm privileged sitting here, I don't live in an area where there's shootings daily. But if I were in an area where there's shootings daily, I would gauge that something is gravely wrong. If I live in a very safe area, cut off from that, I may have a very different perception. But I do think that we don't realize how interconnected it all is, how a murder in what is known as a historical gang hotspot is actually linked to what's happening in the city center, which is linked to a government office, etc.
And which other restaurants or clubs in Cape Town should one avoid if they don't want to contribute to organized crime?
So I would say think, read, and make up your own mind, okay? Because it's a difficult one. I was standing outside court several years ago now, and what was happening in Cape Town specifically at that stage, according to police, was that these sort of big muscled groups were going around demanding protection money, extortion.
You wrote about that.
I did indeed. So do we blame the venue if they pay over that money? Okay. In a sense, you can say you're complicit because you're furthering organized crime. On the flip side, if you don't pay and someone gets murdered, that person's life is on your hands, or I don't want to say blood is on your hands, but that's the problem we're sitting with. So, and I can't say which places are being extorted. I can't say which are fronts, but I would say if you get that gut instinct, and I think the more dissociated we are from reality and on our phones and TikTok, etc., we may forget that we actually have a real instinct, which is probably right.
Yes.
So yeah, if you know of a place or you read about a place and something's happening there, use your brain, use your mind.
The recent reports by General Mukwanazi is basically the biggest news in the country right now. There's a commission coming. When you saw the interview, I imagine you saw the interview. What was your reaction? Were you surprised? Were you like, this is old news? How did that make you feel?
Thank you for asking. No one's actually asked that. And it's a question that really resonates with me because when I listened and watched the interview, even though what he is alleging are mere allegations and accusations that are yet to be tested, I almost, in a sense, felt relief because I've written 4 books about police corruption, about drug trafficking in, through, and by South Africa. I've written about too many murders to even conceive of. And I've just thought, oh my gosh, whether this is true or not, it means that focus will be on this, which I feel like I've pulled out a lot of hair. Thank goodness I've got a lot of hair, like a lot. But like I feel like, thank goodness it doesn't feel like an isolated few voices screaming into a void. It feels like that void is now open and everyone's looking at it, and I cannot be more thankful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Now, what has since happened is that you've got Senzo Mkhunu, who is now on special leave, former police minister in Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet. You've got Bheki Cele, who's now been connected to Ked Matlala, who was also in Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet. Is it scary to imagine that this is connected to the president, or the president knows?
So I'm going to answer it in a bit of a weird way, but I'm not being a politician, okay?
If you don't start with
let me answer it this way. Allegedly, I'm teasing. No. Every story I write about a suspected criminal or an actual convicted criminal, I always have a fear that it doesn't end there. So I don't actually know who I'm writing about. And when we look at organized crime, you know that there is someone above the person you're writing about generally, and there will be a puppet master. So what scares me is about several accusations and stories is the not knowing who could be there. So even if we suspect, this could be a link, what am I not suspecting and who am I potentially angering? Because it's the people I can't see or the people we don't know about. And just remember that the most successful crooks, the most successful thugs are the ones we don't know about because they're so good at what they're doing. So I would be, I really almost want to say I don't want to know where these chains lead. I really do want to know though, but it's terrifying.
I was going to ask, does it scare you? Because we're doing an episode on this. And I'm scared.
Me too.
Oh, I'm not going crazy. It's scary.
No, it's very scary. I eat a lot of, anti-heartburn stuff.
Oh, yeah?
Like, there was a stage I was like popping them like popcorn. But yeah, no, it's very scary and it's also very disturbing because I have to reiterate, I'm still sitting in a very privileged position. I've been threatened and I consider myself lucky for being threatened. I haven't just been attacked. So yeah, it's scary. And again, it's not knowing who you're truly irritating, and it's not knowing if someone will just flip and react one day and decide, just take her out. Like, that sounds scary.
Is the illicit economy very connected to the normal legal economy in South Africa?
I would say yes. And that's why money laundering exists, to flip over your illegal money. But absolutely. So even with extortion, etc., that money is illegally gained. It may go back into a business, right? And then what's even more chilling or harrowing in a sense is this. If I go out, right, and I pay for a meal, and I don't particularly know what happens to that money, if this place is being extorted, and this isn't to make restaurants or anything look bad. I'm just mentioning one type of business. But you pay for something. You don't know where that money goes. Yeah. You don't know if that money is paying someone pretending or purporting to provide security. You don't know if you're paying an extortionist. Yeah. So I would say the two are absolutely interconnected. The one is the other in a sense.
Are you able to look at a business randomly and go, this is money laundering? I'll tell you what, because in my previous life, I was in finance, IT, and there was, they would have like a money laundering course because it was for a bank, right? And that damaged me to an extent because I'd walk around and look at a shop and go, nah, there is no way. Does that same thing happen to you as you walk around?
Gut instinct. Sometimes I'm like, no, something doesn't seem right here, or like, no, this isn't working. And then it goes further because I'm from Cape Town and I've lived in Cape Town for 99.9% of my life. Sometimes I'm like, okay, no, I don't want to enter this area, which is completely unfair, but it shows how we're warped as well by what I'm doing as a journalist. I don't want to go there because I know this is this gang's turf. And I don't want to show my face there because, well, someone may recognize me. So, yeah, and then absolutely you see some things and you're like, that doesn't look right. Like, how are there no customers in there ever? And this place is thriving.
How are there no customers in this place? That literally on my mind the whole time. And majority of the time they've got nice things like
sparkly things.
The way things are sitting now, there is a Bekitele who's calling a gangster 10 times and the gangster is not picking up.
Alleged gangster.
Alleged, sir. If you see this, please, alleged. 10 times he doesn't pick up and he allegedly slept at his place. Do you find, kind of like me, that you miss the Guptas because at least the Guptas like treated our politicians with some sort of like respect, Nyana? At least they'd invite them for curry and they'd buy them houses and Atul wasn't missing calls. Like he was taking calls. There's a record of like 58 calls. Like, do you miss?
I hear what you're saying. It was like the simplicity of the times. Like there was state capture, or what we perceived as state capture, and it seemed to be neatly tied up in a bow. Like, oh, this happened. This happened. As a journalist, though, for the past few years, I'm like, wait a minute, we can't be out of capture. Are we like, is the state uncapture? It doesn't feel like that. So like, in terms of my naivety at some point and the simplicity that came along with the naivety, which was years ago, I absolutely miss that. But I'm also so relieved that even if there's an accusation of a criminal accused associating with anyone in government, that the focus and the spotlight is on it. I can't tell you how much of a physical feeling of weight lifted off my shoulders, because there's only so much you can do as a journalist. And sometimes I really felt like I'm screaming and no one's listening. So yeah, I miss the simplicity of beautiful, naive little days when we knew little.
Is it fair for South Africans to assume that the old scape capture is gone with the Guptas and now it's starting to feel that we've been captured by organized crime? So
let's for the purposes of this conversation, let's call it state capture 0.2 because apartheid was 0.1. Okay, Let's go with that. I don't think that you can say state capture is over because there's a new president or because certain people have been accused or maybe one or two people have since been convicted or more than one or two people. I don't think you can say, oh, state capture's over. It's like you can't say post-apartheid racism is over. So I would say that I think we're still in a sense or an iteration of capture. And like I say in my book, Man Alone, I say the horrible thing about country in the hands of the corrupt is that we only truly realize the extent of it in retrospect. And that's my fear at the moment, like what is actually happening, because we've got a senior police officer making accusations and allegations against others, including a minister and other police officers. Whether he's telling the truth, whether these are accusations, claims, whatever, he said it, and this highlights fractures in the state. So the fractures are there. That is fact, and that is where my sort of fear for what comes next resides.
Now, we know about the ANC's alleged connections to organized crime, do other political parties have connections alleged to organized crime as well?
So it depends on the way you look at it, okay?
Yes.
I would say that certain politicians have been very upfront about their backgrounds, and their backgrounds do involve criminality, but that is in the past.
Yes.
What happened between then and now, perhaps we'll see some of that sort of surfacing, perhaps we'll see more questions. And perhaps the most honest answer I can give you is to say that organized crime saturates everything. It isn't confined to politics. It isn't confined to a specific demographic. So I think it would be, I'm going to use that word again, naive to say, oh, only this one party has suspected criminal links. Da, 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 da. I think it would be broader, and perhaps we should also be fair and say, perhaps these are certain individuals and not a full-on political party. Yeah.
Tell us about Cyril Beaker and his.
So Cyril Beaker was, I'm going to use like a bit of slang, which is very unbecoming because look at me, I'm not cool enough. But he was he was viewed as a bouncer boss or a bouncer kingpin.
Yes.
So these were sort of the roots or the starting point of what became nightclub security battles, sort of factions fighting over who controls nightclub security in the city center. It sounds all fancy and like, like TV showish, but I mean, it was very real violence, number one. And number two, Cyril Beaker was suspected of supporting the ANC. But at the same time, there's several people who believe he was a double agent.
Yes.
So he was serving whichever political master he could benefit the most from.
Yes.
So he's one of those typical figures, with many faces depending on who you ask. And I just want to reiterate that me as a journalist, I am not the protector of your legacy.
Yes.
If you have acted in a way that allows for suspicion and questions.
Now, you say you have been threatened. We saw for the first time 2 weeks ago a journalist being offered a bribe on camera. Have you been offered a bribe?
Not that I know of. I don't think so. When I saw that, it did remind me of this one story I did, though, many years ago. A man, you know those pamphlets you see pasted on walls and stuff, and this man was offering abortion medication. So I pretended to be pregnant, and he actually did come with the medication, which I don't even know if I bought it. I think he gave it to me. So it was like a reverse thing, and we got that on camera. So I want to answer in reverse, but I've never been offered a bribe. And I think if I were offered a bribe, I'd be so shocked I'd probably literally run. Because, I've been offered weird things like private security by someone being investigated for extortive type security.
Yes.
So it's like, what?
Well, I mean, you've written a couple of books, and here at Politically Aweh, we would like, for you to include us in one of your writings, like...
what is that, though? Why am I so suspicious? Is this the bribe?
It's a little... little something, Yana.
There's actual... But this is a better bribe bag. It looks less Dior-ish.
You know what I mean?
I'm teasing.
It has I respect you. And it's more than 60,000.
Also, you can recycle that because you can re-gift it.
Do you see what I'm saying?
The harder. At first, I was like, what?
I've asked one or two journalists, is it crazy to try and bribe an investigative journalist? Is it a crazy thing? Because we think that's the thing that gets you going.
Yeah.
Is it maybe a situation of journalists don't make enough money so you can try and
that's like a very serious and a very worrying question.
Right.
Because what we're talking about are allegations of a bribe, right? And let's park that there. But it's really worrying for anyone to consider bribing any journalist, because it brings up the questions. How many times has this happened before? And
which one has taken?
Yes, and then it's like, the damage this does is far beyond what the public may gauge from it. For me as a journalist, I was like, I had that question. Like, wait a minute, have we been offered bribes? Like, I do not recall this. I mean, I know I would have been horrified and reported it, but who's to say someone isn't reporting it? Who's to say they aren't more? You should have had a brown envelope. It would have been a lot more significant and easy. But
The standards have changed. We are at your bags now. Brown envelope looks.
Yeah.
We're not profits, so we're
TikTok
trying.
generation. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's a very scary thought. And it's also damaging to the industry for people who aren't accepting bribes, or for people who are maybe offered a bribe and didn't get it on camera, which is like also a ludicrous thing to think about. But again, we're speaking about accusations, allegations, and who knows.
Is it going to make your work difficult?
No, I don't think so. I do a kind of like a different kind of journalism. I hope this isn't damaging to the industry in any way. The kind of journalism I'm doing, and it's not to separate myself, we're all doing like weird things within the journalism sphere, but I deal with a lot of people who are, it's horrible, they're afraid. People who are scared. People who don't know if they will live out the year. So yeah, I deal with different kinds of sources and contacts and whistleblowers who should be getting all the credit, but who can't because their lives are in danger.
We've seen what has happened to whistleblowers in the country. Babita's name is now coming up over and over again. As somebody who covers that and somebody who has relationships with those people, because I imagine you do build relationships with them.
Over years.
How does that impact you, the person?
It impacts me the same as what I was mentioning earlier. Like, we're sitting in Cape Town at the moment, and we have a gang violence and a taxi conflict problem, and there are shootings consistently. And I'm 20 years into my career now, and certain things haven't changed. It's not that I haven't evolved as a journalist. There's certain crimes that cannot be ignored. So just for example, last week we had a 2-month-old baby and an 11-year-old girl killed in gang shootings. The feeling I get at times, waking up and the first message I see, or the first message I read is about a fatal shooting, and the last message I see before I go to sleep is about a fatal shooting, and I feel helpless. Like, I feel a lot more helpless now than I've ever felt in my career. And now you can hear my voice. Come on, Caryn. But like, seriously, it breaks me. It breaks my heart that we can't do more and that there's something fundamentally wrong. And the reason I've used violence to describe this is because it's the same when someone comes to you and says, so-and-so's life's in danger, my life's in danger, what can I do? We try, we really, really try. And at some point, they are just... It's horrifically repetitive. And the impact that has on me is that I run the risk of becoming I don't want to say depressed, but I run the risk of becoming a bitter person. But at the same time, I look at these people, and these are whistleblowers, these are brave people, they are brave people talking to me. And completely obliterates the negative, bitter thoughts. So we have such good people who are trying so hard against this almighty flood of mess.
Is this the plus side? Is this because there must be also like a positive takeaway for you where you go like, yeah, this is why I do it.
Yes. And even this conversation, the fact that we can have this conversation, firstly, the fact that we can be open as we're talking, people still trust some of us enough to impart information that is dangerous. And I write about policing often, and I focus on different aspects of policing. As much as there is bad, there is very good. There are honest, decent people who are putting their lives on the line, and we won't ever get to hear about them in public, which makes it even more, I almost want to say my heart feels like it wants to nurture these individuals and people. And absolutely, like, the fact that we can debate this and the fact that we can consider, are we in a mafia state, without you sitting here and saying, we are in a mafia state, like, that is still good. It may not be the best scenario, but I always say this. Okay, there are two things I always say, but the one is gangs are organized groupings, right? Yes. People who are not in gangs far outnumber the gangsters. If we could just use that collective power, great. And the other thing is, if we just keep that mentality, who have you fed today? Just think, what good have you done today? It's like a tiny thought and it costs nothing. It takes up 2 seconds. You can actually just impart something that could potentially just uplift someone else and have a ripple effect. And like that's what we're hopefully doing in different ways.
Good.
Thank you for the slow clap.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for nearly bribing me. I'm teasing. It was not a bribe.
Hey!
got my name to maintain.
It was not a bribe. I didn't touch the money. What did you say? I didn't touch the money. It's the other guy. Thank you. This was so good. Like, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.